You're listening to the Run for Your Lives podcast.
Hey everyone, welcome to the show. I'm Daphne.
And I'm Pake.
And this is the Run for Your Lives podcast.
This week, we're talking about the monster film Godzilla, King of the Monsters, directed by Michael Dougherty and released May 31st, 2019. We are continuing on with the Monsterverse. And to ring in this one, we have a very special guest, the biggest Godzilla fan nerd that I've ever met in my entire life. And I'm so happy to have him on here to be able to talk about it. Please welcome from Panels to Pixels, Adrenaline Cinema, and the head of the Pirate Core Entertainment Network, Mr. Mark Kirkman.
Oh, well, thank you for having me to be on here. Wow, this is awesome. And on a movie that I love because a lot of people didn't like the legendary version of King of the Monsters, but I do.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Mm-hmm, well, we're really happy to have you here with us this week to talk about this movie. As Pake said, we know how much you love Godzilla, not just Godzilla as in films, but the lore and everything that goes behind it. So we couldn't have thought of a better person to have on with us when we discuss this movie.
Cool. I'm glad to be here. I'm
Take
hoping I can live up to the legend. I'm just a fan, everybody. I'm just a huge fan. I'm not a guru. I'm not somebody who knows everything. So I will give my best.
More than us for sure. So it'll be,
yes.
Like I said, you use classes in session at the Kaiju University, and Mark.
Kaiju Universe. I love that. All right, cool.
Love that. Better trademark that, Pig. It's good. Well, I'm going to get us started with our usual behind-the-scenes coverage. This movie was filmed in Atlanta, Georgia, and China, with parts filmed in the historic center of Mexico City. This is the first sequel for an American production of Godzilla. It is also it's also the second film to feature Godzilla as a heroic character. This is the film debut for Stranger Things' Millie Bobby Brown. She plays Madison. The budget was $170 million to $200 million, plus an additional $100 to $150 million was spent on marketing this film. The box office was $386.6 million. It's 132 minutes, and Pake, bring on the synopsis.
All right. The synopsis that gives nothing away until we give everything away a few minutes later. As the world is still recovering from the fact that monsters exist, they face a new threat, the return of the Titans.
You know, when I think of Titans, it always takes me to Clash of the Titans. Perseus, and all of the fun. But
I usually think of Titan sports, and I think of wrestling.
And then I go remember the Titans with football. So we're all over the place.
It's something, it takes us all to different places in our heads. But
well, I really think, honestly, Godzilla. This is a great way of actually explaining these monsters. And I'm glad that they came up with that kind of title for them. Yeah. So it makes it worth like the idea of, okay, these are Titans. And just like you said, Daphne, with Clash of the Titans, yes, these are symbolic and huge giant creatures.
Oh, yeah. That's how they set them up here, is to show the scale, no pun intended with Godzilla, or Ghidorah. No, but how ancient these creatures and these beings really are is that they are that ancient to where they are considered, like, they are gods. They're Titans. They are all the way back to ancient civilizations that we had, that like on Earth had not even remembered or known that existed. They're that ancient. These were, these monsters were considered the gods of that time.
Yeah, I am really excited to break this down with you guys because, like when we watched Kong Skull Island, this was my first viewing of Godzilla, King of the Monsters.
I'm very interested to know what you thought.
Same here.
You're a little hesitant going into.
Well, I have to really ask you a question, Daphne. Do you have megalophobia?
No, why?
Because that's the fear of very large things, objects, or very things. Because that's what Titans are, and that's what these Godzilla or kaiju, as it were, are. So, Megalophobia. If you guys really want to look that up, they have a YouTube channel out there. So I suggest and recommend people go look at it because there's a lot of things that they cover because people are afraid of these animate objects that are out there. It will scare the living bejesus out of you if you have a fear of these things. So check it out. There's a lot of weird stuff in this world, amusement park-wise, animatronic-wise. Go check it out.
You both know that I'm a huge fan of anything dinosaur. So I don't think I'm afraid of big things.
Mm-hmm.
For some reason, I just never joined the Godzilla bandwagon. I had seen a lot of the earlier films, and I saw 1998. I saw the one in 2014, but I had not seen these two, I guess because it just wasn't on my radar or I just wasn't interested. But I'll tell you, after watching the trailer for Godzilla versus Kong, I was really excited to watch this one.
Get our money's worth when it comes to the Titans and the kaiju within this film. We get more so that we got because the biggest complaint from 2014 is that they did not get enough of Godzilla.
10 minutes. Yeah. About 10 or 11 minutes was the tops. And I love monsters. I want to see the monsters. And this film gave me the monsters on a silver platter.
It does. But the thing is, with the first movie, it harkened back to the original series where you didn't really get to see the destruction or the Titan himself doing anything or being shown. Everything was very elusive, very Jaws-like. Yeah. If you think about it.
Yeah.
And they used, at that time, stop-motion animation. They had a man in a suit, Haru Nakajima, and they basically had toy tanks and all that good stuff. Where with the 2014 one, they still left to that whole anticipation tactic, which worked for the movie, and it made me feel like, wow, I'm really seeing a Godzilla movie. And I'm sorry, listeners, if I'm going a little too long, but the fact is that if I was on, I would have said this was the Godzilla movie that we always needed. 1998 was a good attempt. It's entertaining. I enjoyed it, but using the Godzilla name was not it. It's Gino. It's Godzilla in name only. Yeah. And it was in. If you go and you watch the movie Final Wars by Toho, they kind of do away with Gino quite fast. The term for him is tuna head. But the fact is that, 2014 was very good, gave us and set up the stage of what a Godzilla movie should have been in America based upon the original Japanese theory and thought. Whereas with King of the Monsters, well, literally, this is our destroy all monsters for America that we have never had before. Yeah. And I don't think that's the pinnacle just yet because we got more coming.
I know, and it's coming soon.
But yeah, I love what you mentioned. You get them served up to you because, we said it was good to have 2014 kind of take that Jaws-esque approach where ease it in and be like, oh, when's he coming? When's he coming? Ooh, there he is. And just but now that we've seen him in his glory, King of the Monsters is like, okay, we're not going to play that game again because you know what it is now. So let's just dive in headfirst full into this world now. So let's go. I do love that.
Yeah.
Yep.
I loved this film. Mostly. That's all I'm going to say till we dive into everything else. It gave me the monsters I wanted, and I loved it.
Good. I'm glad that you enjoyed it. Go out on a limb and say you probably like Skull Island still better, but that's a fair
I guess you're going to have to wait and see till we do the rankings.
Well, Skull Island actually was very good, I thought.
It's very good, yeah.
I really enjoyed it
recently,
and a lot of people I know didn't like it, but I have my thoughts on that, and I will probably send that out to you guys in a voicemail, so that way you could actually play it and get my thoughts on it as well. But they'll be shorter.
We just covered it for Run for Your Lives, and I had never seen it. I was apprehensive going into it because I didn't love Godzilla 2014. However, Kong really blew my mind, so I enjoyed it. I'm excited to break this one down with you guys because you've all seen it before and we're doing a rewatch. For me, it's the first time through, so my perspective might be just a little bit different than yours. It could lead to some good conversation, so we may all be on the same page.
Awesome.
Cool.
Well, then let's jump right into that conversation. And again, as a reminder, when we have a guest, we do a top 3 format just to make it go a little bit easier. And Mark is our guest here. I'm going to let him go first. So what is your number 3 moment, thought, whatever of this movie?
Well, my number 3 are, third thought on this movie would be the human element within the movie was really, really good. Now, within Toho series or the movies themselves, they always make it a storyline based upon human characters that basically are involved within said story. So with that, we just love to see that human element, because without the human element, there wouldn't be any story. All we see is 2 big gargantuan titans just throwing down and people running away from chaos and carnage. So now we get a story behind it of what's going on. So between the story element of a family structure that's been destroyed by Godzilla from the 2014 movie, which would be Emma, Mark, and Madison, and losing that young son within said movie, and how Emma is bent on a kind of a journey to make the world right, with utilizing these titans to create the world, and saying that I hate using a Christmas story. You got to lower the surplus population, because apparently, kind of like George Carlin, it's like we're a nuisance, a bunch of fleas on the earth, and the earth has to shake it off. So, well, with this in this movie, the titans are pretty much that, and they're just shaking us off.
Yeah, I think she refers to it as they're the fever burning off the infection of humanity, basically.
Yeah.
Exactly. And the fact that, Vera Farmiga was really great in a representation of what she did in dealing with grief and the loss of her son and losing her husband and dealing with her daughter at the same time, bringing her up to survive in the aftermath of said destruction with the Titans. Now, mind you, she was influenced by another group that is looking to get her to do this because she has the know-how. Now, Mark was part of that creation of that device to kind of control certain animals, and originally it was for whales, but they found out it worked out for the Titans themselves, and that's how this story propels itself. So we have a reasoning, a structure, a plot point, and character development all within the first 15 to 20 minutes of the film.
Yeah.
And
yeah,
with a lot of Toho, they don't have much of that. With this was very well written, and they knew the characters and they plotted it based upon said characters. A lot of people don't like that. You're going to be a lot of people like me who is Toho, purists that love the idea of Godzilla wanting to have that destroy all monsters feel and seeing the monsters come right in and just start attacking each other and have that minimalist of information. Because in the original Destroy All Monsters, it was very, very small when it comes to the story. They go out to outer space, they come back in. Next thing you know, the monsters are running amok and they're destroying everything and they're attacking each other. And then at the very end, it's usually the aliens, but in this case, it's really the humans. So.
Cool. Is that it you have on there?
That's all I got, buddy.
All right, awesome. Daphne, what about you?
You know what? It's kind of interesting because I kind of went along the same wavelength as Mark for my number 3. It was the characters and connections, and I feel like we did get this story at the beginning of a family ripped apart by their son, and I believe his name was Andrew, and he died in the San Francisco situation.
Mm-hmm.
And watching a family that's broken, and you see a mother who's gone in one direction and a father who's gone in another. And I question only, well, why did Madison decide to stay with her mother and not go with her father? And there seems to be this relationship between the mother and father, but also Madison and her father, Mark, at the same time. Like it seems really strained relationship, so much so that it seems like Emma doesn't want Madison communicating with her father because it sounds like he's let them down before. So I'm not really sure where that all went. But as Mark said, Emma and Mark worked on the Orca, which was the machine to communicate with whales. I thought it was cool that it was called Orca because, there's that connection. So they worked on that together. And then she decided to rebuild it, and he decided to just leave, go off in a different direction.
And it's because of what happened in San Francisco. It was after that situation because they both worked for Monarch.
Yes.
And I think it was that situation where she wanted to continue down the path she was, while the loss of their son and what had happened in San Francisco had actually completely flipped him, where he at that point then wanted nothing to do with Monarch and kind of fell in line with the military and the government saying, it's not worth trying to protect and research these creatures anymore. We need to take them out. And so I think that was a very big difference of thought that was enough to flip them completely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. Because the fact that Monarch was trying to save the Titans, whereas the government was wanting to kill the Titans. And then you have a third party that want to use the Titans for their own self-gain.
Yes. Because I don't believe that Jonah was all about humanity and saving the planet. I think there was a lot more behind him than what we saw. And forgive me if when he walked in the room, all I could think was Tywin Lannister and he's coming.
Oh, damn.
And we have dragon-like creatures here. I'm just thinking, oh my gosh, this is like, it kind of took me there really quick. And then I was like, nope, this is not that. Let's just move on. But I really liked the dynamic between the three of them because it was complicated, because it wasn't like, oh, we're a happy family and everything is wonderful. It was complicated. Their relationship with each other was complicated, just like the relationship between the military and the Titans and Monarch and the Titans. It's all very complicated, complex. It's not easily defined. It's not easily explained. And I really appreciated that. I also loved that we got to see Sarazawa and Graham again, which we saw them in the 2014 film. I thought that was a great bridge between the two films. And I love that Sarazawa was, to me, he's a purist. He really was all for saving Godzilla, saving the Titans, doing what needed to be done to save Godzilla. He trusted in Godzilla.
Mm-hmm.
You saw his love of Godzilla at the very end.
Yes,
and
he
that's
did.
One of my favorite scenes, too.
Yeah. And there was one other little character that I wasn't 100% sure until I did a little research.
Oh,
I'm
really?
talking about a character that was in Kong Skull Island that had been aged up for this film, and his name was Houston Brooks. And he actually appeared, I believe it was where Mothra had gone to put herself in the cocoon, and he was with one of the twins there, but I did confirm it, it's Houston Brooks, and he was from King Kong, and I liked that. I wondered, because I kept hoping that there would be at least one King Kong character connection.
Yeah, I caught that at the very last minute, and it was such a short revisit.
It was, but it was enough for me.
I'm blanking. Who is
it didn't really do much for me. I really wanted more.
Brooks. Oh, yes. Okay.
Now you got it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very small part, not a big deal, but I liked it because I wanted that connection to Skull
Wasn't
Island.
the same actor though, like aged up.
No.
Yeah.
Nope, they had a different one.
Yeah, they had a different one, and it was nice to have that, but I would pretty much would have wanted more.
Oh, okay. I know.
Yeah.
Monarch
Smiling at-
storyline.
Yeah.
John
Okay.
Goodman's
Yes.
friend. That was.
I didn't
with
realize
them.
that was supposed to be Brooks from.
It
Skull.
was. Yeah.
It was. Yeah.
And I didn't realize it either. But then once I looked into it, it's like, okay, cool. I'm glad that he was there. I wish they'd made more of it, though.
Good for him that he's stuck it out with Monarch.
Yeah, this is
I
the
know.
legendary monsterverse that we know. They're trying to incorporate as much in, even though it's very little.
Yeah.
To some people, they're trying to incorporate it, which I love, because only like huge fans or people looking for those little things will look for that. It's kind of like The Walking Dead. Oh, wait, remember that person from like season 3?
I do.
Or
Usually.
even the Marvel universe, or like when I talk about it on Panels to Pixels. Oh, they talked about that in Ultron. And there are little things that you have to pick up. And sometimes it takes a bunch of viewings in order to catch that. Because sometimes, for the most part, when I watch this movie, I watch it for the enjoyment because I just love the movie overall. But I'm not looking for all the little nuances.
Oh, I am.
Daphne had picked that up. So I'm glad you picked that up. I kind of picked it up and I was like, okay, yeah, I know who that is. And I was like, yeah, I remember that. But it was such a small part.
It was. But I like those little threads that tie things together, especially in these movies. And like we had said earlier, I was more connected to Kong Skull Island. So for me, it meant something to have that little thread of connection between those two movies. Well, Pake, why don't you bless us with your number 3?
Oh, man. I'm trying to decide which way to go. It's like my 3 and 2 kind of tie into what you're saying. So which one would be better for me to start with? I'm going to start with the third one. It's kind of quick and easy, but I think it just needs its own moment because you did mention it a little bit. But I have Ichiro Serizawa and his final sacrifice and what that meant, and to have him in the movie. I loved it a lot. And he has a lot of great moments. You talked about him kind of being just this very like purist of like, not really like a worshiper, but like he has a lot of respect and honor for Godzilla and his role in the natural order of things, and is a huge just like proponent of Godzilla and what he does. And I love that he sticks to that loyalty and that his beliefs there all the way through to the end, to the point that he sacrifices himself so that they can revive Godzilla to jump back into this fight. And I think that is beautiful. And before that, though, I love the conversation that he has with Mark, where, they're talking about, just all the different things that go on. But, he pulls out that watch and, it starts off Mark saying, what time is it? And he goes, time for me to get a new watch. And then you realize that it's more than just like, he knew that was going to be Serizawa's response. And then you find out that Serizawa had actually had sort of a like relationship or friendship with the Russell family, including their son, Andrew, who had died in San Francisco, because Andrew would ask him that question all the time, knowing that would be his answer. And it was his favorite joke. So they were close. And I loved that. But the thing I love about that watch is it's a really cool callback to the 2014 Godzilla, because and we get that scene in that movie where, as he's talking to, have it in here, Admiral Stenz, which actually is the same guy that drops the oxygen destroyer in this movie.
Yes.
But when we go back to 2014, he's talking to that same actor, same character, Admiral Stenz, and that's when he pulls out that watch and he says, "Well, what time do you have on there?" Whatever, and he's like, 8:16 a.m. or 8:15 a.m. on the day. And it's like it was his father's from Hiroshima, and he keeps that as a reminder. And so it was cool that like it was a little callback, but it wasn't like very in your face, Tori, because he just has the watch, and they mention the it's a broken watch, and then he puts it back up. And they don't talk about the history of it. It's one of those things that if you had watched 2014 and you remembered, it was a cool little callback for just on the inside. And I thought that was really, really sweet.
There's also a callback to the original 1954 regarding said watches, by the way.
Oh, nice.
Yeah,
I haven't seen those. So
listeners, if you really want, go deep diving, go back, rewatch it. Watch the unedited Japanese version. And then go watch the Raymond Burr version if you really want to have overdubs. But the unedited Japanese with subtitles is perfect for it. And you can find it out there on Blu-ray.
Always. Yep. Mark, a while back, we had a discussion about subtitles and dubbing. And our recommendation, I believe, was friends don't let friends watch subtitle movies with dubs. You have to read them.
Been a call for every Godzilla convention I've gone to since 1994. Yeah. Every time I had gone, now mind you, I was only able to go to about 6 of them within New York City. And every year I would go and I felt like I found my people.
Mm-hmm.
Now they only carry them in, I believe, out in the West Coast, somewhere near Las Vegas, and only in Japan. You could find some of these on YouTube. But the New York ones I found where I met my people. We got to actually meet a lot of the Toho actors. But the thing is when you bring a kid into this fold, either you had a kid, you have a nephew, a niece, somebody that you brought into the con itself. They're like, well, I like this movie because I like the way it sounds and blah, blah, blah. Well, how do you listen to it? And they're like, well, it's always dubbed. No, you need to get the actual subtitled versions. You cannot watch the dubbed versions because you lose a lot. There's a lot missing in said story. So I'm glad when they actually do subtitled, and which is why I was so happy to go see Shin Godzilla when it came out in the theaters, and I got to see that in the theaters. But regardless, you get to feel what the Japanese version is really about. So where you don't lose anything in translation. And anytime you do anything dubbed that is kind of recreated or rescripted for American audiences from the Japanese, you're going to miss a lot. And I think we've seen that too when we watched The Host, Daphne. And I think you watched The Host dubbed as well as subtitled.
I have watched it only subtitled.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, let's go back
That was
5 of this podcast, people.
Yes.
And that was with The Host is I could only find it dubbed at first, and then I stopped that and I made a way to find subtitles because I was like, I'm not doing this.
Yeah.
Yeah. You missed the passion in the voice.
Jumping back on board that tangent, which was a good tangent. I enjoy it. But yeah, Serizawa. So yeah, the watch thing was cool, but then, man, that moment when he goes into Godzilla's kind of lair, home,
temple,
area, recharging and regenerating.
Yep. To boost him with atomic energy.
Yeah.
And it looked like Atlantis to me, if you think.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Like Atlantis. They never really named it, but it's like, it's much more ancient than like a lot of places that we would even think. But yeah, that scene just gets me teary every time. I don't know why exactly. I mean, I do know why, but you think it's like, this guy and this giant lizard monster, but getting connected to Serizawa from the 2014 film, and then like seeing, just kind of his passion and his story, and then to have it culminate in this, it's really emotional to me. And, he sacrifices himself so that he can detonate that nuke right there in order to power up Godzilla. And it's just that moment where he just is able to touch him. And there's like this like knowing glance, like between the two of them. And then he says in Japanese, goodbye, old friend. And then it explodes. And
so sad. It gets me too.
That was touching. That was a touching moment. And that's in my number 2, and I won't go into that until I get to my number 2.
That was a rough one.
Yeah, it's a very powerful scene, and so it's a kind of a short number 3 for me, but I really wanted to give Serizawa his dues, and just that moment and his role in this movie ended up being a lot more powerful than I think most people would even expect it to be.
Yeah, agreed.
But yeah, all right. Mark, what about your number 2 then?
Well, to lead right into it, what you kind of enough said, Serizawa's sacrifice. He sacrificed his own life with his belief that Godzilla would change the world with man and Titan. But he was wrong on both parts because both are very destructive in their own way in nature. The Earth will always be reborn in some way. The Titans always were a balance of good and evil. Now, man hasn't really resolved that issue within themselves. So they also became a threat unto the Titans themselves, which, cough, cough, basically is what we're looking at with Godzilla vs. Kong. So the third person or thing, or Titan, as it were, that will be involved in Godzilla vs. Kong will be man. And I think that's the threat that Godzilla foresees in that particular movie. But apparently we are, like I stated before, we're just fleas on the Earth's back. Same thing with the Titans itself. So this could be a destruction of the Earth if the Titans don't resolve this kind of issue that we have.
Yeah, which that was a big turning point in this movie, though, is that fact that everything kind of lines itself up. And I think as crazy and, maniacal villainous as it is like turned to be with that Jonah and Emma's plan, it kind of ends up being correct. And they do have the right mindset. Like maybe not the right mindset, but the theory is correct, except for the outlier of Ghidorah, because it's of the natural order. Ghidorah was an alien species that does not
correct.
belong
Yeah.
there. And that threw all of that out of whack.
Which we don't get the true story of Ghidorah. All we get is that he was from outer space.
Yeah.
And in true Toho fashion, they always brought him in as like some alien entity or like alien people that bring this to Earth to rid themselves of, oh, hold on, Godzilla's a threat. So we got something here to destroy Godzilla. Or we'll take Godzilla away and have him brought on Planet X, and he'll have to do battle with said Ghidorah because he needs to save our world. But nonetheless, he is still a villain in this particular series, and he gets his powers, and it's amazing what they did with Ghidorah in this particular movie. A lot of people would be like, why do you call yourself a Godzilla fan? Sorry, but there's only so many you could do with suit actors. We've gotten a lot over the years. Final Wars was a great representation of Ghidorah. I do agree. But with this, with all the backing money of Legendary and Warner Brothers that covers that, we got a great representation of Ghidorah. And now, mind you, it doesn't sound the same, but we have every little minuscule part of the original Toho series within this movie. Between the sounds of Ghidorah, between the sounds of Mothra, Mothra's theme, Godzilla's theme, and a whole bunch of others. So that's really what really made me love this movie.
Nice. Love that. All right. Daphne, what about you? What did you have as your number 2?
Well, my number 2, it kind of ties to what you guys were talking about, but it goes a little bit further. We're talking about sacrifice. And Serizawa, of course, made that huge sacrifice to detonate the atomic bomb and help kind of recharge Godzilla. But there were a couple of other sacrifices I wanted to talk about too. And one of them is Mothra. She sacrifices herself to save Godzilla. We see that connection between the two of them. She was fighting to protect him in Boston, and she sacrificed herself to transfer her energy to him, which would help make him stronger and be able to take on Ghidorah, because she knew. I mean, she was strong, that girl. She was great.
Oh, yeah.
I really loved having her in this film. There was one point when she is fighting Rodan and she stabs him with her stinger. Yeah. And all I could think of, and this is the most ridiculous thing to compare it to, is when the girl says toe pick in The Cutting Edge. I don't know why. I have no idea why. But when she did it, I'm just like, toe pick.
Sense.
I feel like she was really tough. I think that Rodan thought she wasn't maybe as tough as she is, and she might have wings and seem a little delicate, but she definitely carries a big stick. And so she took care of that. I was really, it was one of the things that moved me was her sacrifice to help Godzilla be able to step up and face Ghidorah. And then the other sacrifice is Emma, who used the orca to lead Ghidorah away from Godzilla to buy him a little time, which also bought time for Emma, Mark, and the Monarch team to get away. And I mean, her family's faces, you knew where it was going.
Yeah, they needed another sacrifice, unfortunately, but this kind of vindicated her for all the wrongdoings that she was doing at the beginning of the movie.
And I have in my notes here, my favorite thing about that is it ties in very well. I thought it was an amazing little touch. But yeah, that sacrifice of Emma right there immediately goes back. Do you remember what Dr. Ling said when they're talking about Ghidorah and the dragons? And she's talking about the dragons in her Eastern culture and what they stand for. And she wraps that up with, and dragons even are known to grant you the opportunity for redemption. And
exactly.
Oh, yes.
Yes, Chen was very good at that.
The twins, the great twins.
Yeah.
He came from a family of twins, everybody.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, so that pretty much, sizes up my number 2. I just felt like in looking at this film from a higher level view, the theme of sacrifice for the greater good, it ties somewhat to Jonah or Jonah's fake, because I still think he's fake on it. Emma's focused to try to make the world a better place, sacrificing a little bit now to make things better. I just feel like there was a deeper look at sacrifice that I wanted to draw some attention to with my number 2.
That's awesome.
Awesome. Cool.
Pake,
All right.
what is yours?
My number 2 has mostly been talked about, but I kind of like that. That's why I have been preferred to go last, because I have so many notes that I'm kind of like, you guys talk a lot of stuff out, and then like I'll pick up the pieces that are left behind on some of these pieces.
You said you're taking all the breadcrumbs?
Yeah, there we go.
Yeah.
No, but number 2 is because I have Emma and kind of Mark, but the Russells is like, and the connection and plan with Alan Jonah, and just kind of that whole thing. So we talked about a lot of it, but I do want to kind of see what maybe I, have in here that we didn't talk about. So let's see. I think the big thing we didn't talk about a whole lot is that her turn and kind of that twist. And I think that's really cool because, we see Jonah and these soldiers attack the outpost that they're at with Mothra. And then it kind of cuts away and you find, and then they escaped. And you think, okay, so Jonah released Mothra and it's all his doing. And then they get to that point with Ghidorah at that Antarctic, outpost there.
Nobody should have survived that, honestly.
Yeah, right.
No.
They were
Mark
getting kicked
manages
around like a puck on an ice hockey rink. Come on.
Yeah.
Mark manages to show up and he has his moment to where he's going to save his family. And then Emma makes that moment where she pulls Madison back, grabs the, trigger and ignites that charge, and kind of it shows that twist there that, oh no, she's working with Jonah. And she knew he was going to show up at that jungle outpost and take out her guys. And it's all part of the plan. And she meant to, make it look like she was kidnapped by him, but really they've been, planning this and working together the whole time. And it's cool to because it sets up the movie that you were talking about earlier. Is in those first 20 minutes, you're getting this setup of, and here's our hero.
Yep.
That she's not, and I think it's really cool. And then she becomes the villain, but then by the end, again, we see that redemption and her reasoning, and she kind of becomes a hero again at the end. I do really like those really complex character stories like that.
Yeah, so much more complex than you would ever get from a Toho film, by the way. So, and that's the best thing about American cinema at this point. They're able to actually work out the drama properly within these films. Yeah, and that's really what really got me more involved with this. Same thing with Kong Skull Island too, because we didn't have that typical trope of and not to touch on it too much, but in the original Kong series, it was always a girl or damsel in distress, or a guy that was in distress in King Kong Lives. But in that particular movie, it wasn't much of anything. It was just everybody in general. Mm-hmm. So they kind of made it a general thought. So, yeah, we had Brie Larson, we had Tom Hiddleston, and we had a whole bunch of a slew of other great actors in it. Nobody was the central focus of Kong. Same thing within this. It was a cast. It was a group effort. Everybody had their part in the story, which to me was really good.
Yeah, and there was a good cast. I don't have a lot of notes about a bunch of them, but mainly I think my favorite kind of part of some of these people that they cast in were part of this, Bravo team of Monarch and the military that was working with them. I loved seeing some of those. I mean, of course, the standouts for me, Thomas Middleditch is a great, hilarious, comedic actor, and he's great for comedic relief. But then he also can play some really it's always comedy, but within science. And Bradley Whitford is the other one.
Yeah, Bradley Whitford.
Oh my goodness!
Yes,
yeah. So funny.
So
love
funny,
him so
such
much.
A comedic talent. Yeah, I love him.
Yeah, he's incredible. So he's one of my favorite. He had some of the best lines in this movie, just comedic wise and cracking into different stuff. But then, he's a fun addition to this. And then I think the other two that I really enjoyed, O'Shea Jackson, which is Ice Cube's son.
Yeah.
He worked with, I don't know why I'm blanking on the person's name, who played Brooks in Skull Island, Corey Hawkins.
Yeah.
And yeah, because the two of them were together in Straight Outta Compton, and that was awesome. So O'Shea Jackson is always great. He's like really come into his own as a great actor, especially playing his father in Straight Outta Compton. I thought was really cool.
Yeah, I thought that was amazing.
Yeah, but then he's really built on his own outside of that too, and done some great stuff. And then I'm a big Hamilton fan, so it was great to see Anthony Ramos as well.
Yes. One thing I wanted to point out, because you were talking about Bradley Whitford, the cool thing about that character is they base some of his mannerisms on a cool cartoon character named Rick Sanchez from Rick and Morty. He's the doctor. And when you watch it, like I looked back, I figured this out after thinking back to it. It's like, oh yeah, definitely. But it wasn't so over the top. So it kind of
kind of worked out within every scene that he was in.
Yes.
Yeah, that was great. I love it's one of those things where the cast members show up and you're like, oh, I forgot they were in this. And oh my God, they're so good.
Yeah. Well, and I feel like, Pake, we have to bring up one more. And that was the actress who played Dr. Chen and Dr. Ling. And that's Zhang Zi. I think, I don't know how to pronounce it. Anyway, she was fantastic. She was in Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. I thought she did a great job playing the twins in this film.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and no, she wasn't a twin. She was one person, Chen, but she came from a long lineage.
No. She played.
Her twin sister was at the
was
Mothra
Dr.
site.
Yep, Dr. Chen.
Okay.
And Dr. Ling. Yep.
Yeah. I thought I was seeing double. Okay, sorry. I drank too much.
No, not a problem. Yeah.
She wasn't teleporting back and forth from the Bravo team to the Mothra site.
Yeah.
But it came from a long line of a family of twins, kind of harkens back to the original Mothra series in Toho, where twins were always the way to be a vessel to talk to Mothra, Mothra herself. And we do get that. And that's a great callback to the Toho series. So only fans of the original Toho series will get that. Some people will just casually watch, go, oh, wait. Oh, there's two of them. There's two of them. Oh, there's another picture of two of them.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, they're twins.
These MonsterVerse movies have made a big point in giving lots of credit and respect and, towards those old movies, giving a lot of those things.
Yeah.
And that's even when I believe Michael Dougherty, before he worked on this, basically was like, went back and rewatched everything.
He did.
And wanted to make sure that he had like everything in his mind so where he can give as many nods and things and like keep it within canon, even though it's its own canon and own story, to have those nods and things like that. You mentioned like the watch or the twins with Mothra, or even like you said, the sounds and the music and things. He wanted to give as much credit to what had built this world as he could. It
was a Godzilla fan or Toho fan's dream to live.
Yes.
And to work on this film, apparently. And for him to watch every movie since 1954 till now, that is a large undertaking, and taking notes for every film to document and try to fit in within said film for canon. And
it's a lot of dedication, but
dedication.
You get handed a project like this. I'm glad that he took it that seriously and wanted to do
same here.
The job he could.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it.
I'm really excited that he's directing Godzilla vs. Kong.
Oh, yeah, he's going to do a great job on it.
I like that. Yeah, I like the idea of the continuation with the same director, because I feel like sometimes when it's different directors, they each have their own vision and it doesn't always stick to like the story that's put in place. So I'm really looking forward to that.
Star Wars sequels. Cough. No.
Marvel sequel. The same thing, dude.
Oh my goodness. We're not going. You know what? We're not going on that tangent tonight, guys.
No, we're not. We're just gonna stick to Godzilla. We'll still work within that universe. That's it. That's all.
Yes.
Good.
Yes,
all right.
we are. And
I
with
digress.
that,
Let's move on.
So I do believe we're at Mark's number one.
We are.
Right? Yeah.
Well, my number one, well, obviously being a typical kaiju and Godzilla fan, well, that final battle scene, that was so intense, so amazing. I loved it. Every inch of my being, every time I watch it, had me jumping up and down like a little kid and playing with my Godzilla toys and wanting to make burr, garg, like reactions. And yes, being somebody who's 48 years old, I do have Godzilla figures, and yes, I do have them around my place. So if you have anything to say about that, keep that to yourself.
There's nothing wrong with that.
No, not at all.
It was all kaiju galore for me. A huge battle. Godzilla has the power to destroy the one thing or one being that he has to deal with all this time, and that would be King Ghidorah. And due to the nukes that have amplified him, it also gives us an Easter egg of an old Heisei series of Toho of Melted Down or Melting Down Godzilla. I say Melted Down because that's how it sounds like when you watch it on the actual Japanese version. Melted Down. And it's Godzilla. It's fiery Godzilla. He's all volcanic and everything. And it was so amazing to see. And
that's what they call him, going thermonuclear, I think is what.
Exactly. Yeah, he's basically thermonuclear, and he's got all that power within him. And that was during the Godzilla versus Destroya from the late 90s. Now, that was the movie that they say, quote unquote, killed off Godzilla in the late 90s. And within that movie, they also talk about what they spoke about within this particular movie, which I enjoy, the Oxygen Destroyer, which that was a key point within the 90s version, but within this, it's a government tactic to get rid of any Titan or especially Godzilla at this point. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see something of that nature come Godzilla versus Kong, because it's something that was mentioned within this film, but it was kind of glossed over. Something as a last ditch effort to get rid of everything because these Titans are killing so much. And
it led to them noticing then and kind of doing a little more research, I guess, that then realizing Ghidorah is not of Earth, and so it had no effect on him whatsoever.
Exactly. And the battle among the Titans each was amazing. I just loved it. We get more Mothra giving, her power to Godzilla to add to it. And you do hear that in the screeching when he attacks Ghidorah with his full force fire breath, and you see resemblances of Mothra behind him, and you hear Mothra's theme music and a screech as it comes through. And, but that end, we get Godzilla standing tall as king of the monsters, and all those Titans just bowing towards him. We saw so much within this particular movie, within these scenes, that I just loved it. It was very different in comparison to Destroy All Monsters from in the late 60s from Toho, but it just gave us that whole presence. But also, it left us thinking kind of like what they said at the very end. He's on our side. Or is he?
For now. Yeah.
For now.
So the thing is that this basically at the very end of the movie, we do see him as king of all monsters at that point until Kong shows up.
All right. Well, Daphne, what about you on the number one?
Well, for me, number one should not be a surprise whatsoever. The monsters in this movie are among some of my favorites, seeing them brought to life, and the final battle especially, but just seeing them each in their little natural outpost, I guess, that they all were. Not just the main ones, not just, Godzilla and Mothra, Ghidorah, Rodan, not just them, but the other ones that we got to see as well, which one of them, I believe, was Behemoth. And Methuselah.
All listed.
I bet you do.
Yeah,
I bet you do. Good.
Behemoth was in Kong Skull Island. He was the gorilla kind of mammoth-looking thing.
Ooh.
Right? Wasn't
I don't know. Nuh-uh. I don't think so.
All right. I didn't really get most of the names. It's kind of strange because those were made.
But
up
yes, I don't. It wasn't. Yeah, it wasn't in Skull Island. But yeah, but that is Behemoth is like half mammoth, half primate kind of. It's this weird, horrifying thing that.
Yes. Yeah.
I thought it was cool looking.
I liked it.
Great.
I liked it. We also got another one that I'm not sure how to pronounce it. If it's Skyla. And it was kind of Scylla, like this giant spider looking thing.
Yeah, Skyla is pretty much like Spiegler in the original Toho series, which is a huge tarantula-style spider.
Yeah.
So it's kind of giving a nod to the Toho series with that particular, because bugs were a huge thing in Toho at a certain point, too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we also saw a Queen Muto and some leaf wings at the end that I recognize from Kong Skull Island. So I was happy about that. I really liked how they were each being introduced in a habitat similar to where their earthly or non-Titan counterparts would live, I guess. Yeah. Rodan emerging from a volcano.
Yep.
Mothra is kind of in this rainforest. Ghidorah was in ice. Like, he was meant to be left alone. And people just couldn't leave him there.
Wasn't that due to the original last battle that Godzilla had with Ghidorah?
Yes, it was.
So that had to go within that. It kind of harkens back to Godzilla Raids Again, because Godzilla comes out of an iceberg at the very beginning of that movie and attacks Anguillus. And you have, I think you mentioned, I see notes here about Anguillus being mentioned within said movie, which I didn't catch.
It wasn't said in the movie. I did the research and then I found out it was confirmed. So we'll get to that when we get to the production notes.
Cool.
One of, as Mark said, I think one of the most powerful moments was at the end of the film when all of the Titans are bowing to Godzilla. It was just really powerful. It's really poignant. It kind of is setting the stage a little for Godzilla versus Kong, despite the fact they did destroy Boston in this. Mm-hmm. It made me think, okay, Madison, you're wearing a Red Sox t-shirt and you've called them all to Fenway Park and they completely destroy it. Okay. If you wanted them to get a new stadium, there are other ways to go about it. However,
and winning another one of those baseball
World
games.
Series, yeah.
Yep, there you go.
It's cool though. One of the things I found out behind the scenes is all the outposts had a number associated. Mm-hmm. So the one where Mothra was Outpost 61, which is kind of an homage to 1961, which was the year that Mothra the movie premiered.
Nice.
Outpost 33 is labeled on the computer screen over Skull Island. King Kong's first film was 1933. Yep. So on and so on. And so they made those cool little connections to the past in that, which I thought was really cool. And yeah, that's pretty much all I have until I get to my production notes. But I really loved the monsters in this movie. I am all about different types of monsters converging despite them destroying Boston. I loved the whole end with the fight was just amazing.
Yeah. I think the Boston bunker they were in, and I don't have this in my notes, so it's just off the top of my head. I think it was marked number 9, if I remember correctly. I don't know what that would mean.
I don't know.
While you're talking about it, I'm like, I think I remember that.
I don't know. I'm going to have to dig on that one.
Mm-hmm. It might be a Red Sox number 9 baseball reference for all we know.
I don't think so.
Really?
Mm-mm. Nope.
1909? I don't know.
No.
All right. Well, of course, my number 1 is going to fall in line again with you guys. And I love that, though, because we can talk about that. And I was like, let me save this till very last, because that way, again, everything that isn't already talked about, then I can kind of go into. Because, yeah, it's kind of cheating on a number 1 because it's such a wide net to cast. But I was like, yeah, the Titans. Godzilla, Ghidorah, Titans. Like, just cover all of it. But yeah, I do have it kind of listed here, all the ones that are seen or mentioned. Of course, the ones that appear: Godzilla, Mothra, Ghidorah, Rodan, a new Muto, Queen Muto, which is assumed probably the last of their species because of what happened in Godzilla 2014. So it's because there's a female, and then there's Skyla, Behemoth. There's also the one that's kind of like a giant turtle kind of thing that was living under the ground, which was Methuselah, is what they referred to.
Wow.
Yes.
Yeah, I didn't catch that one.
Yeah.
Yep,
and
Methuselah.
Kong is not seen necessarily, but
he's referenced
many times. He's referenced many times.
We see video of him too.
Yeah. And so they're definitely, Kong is still very highly on Monarch's radar, and they're keeping a close eye on him. So I think that's cool. And then there's a few others that are not mentioned, but are kind of like named whenever Mark is scrolling through the different, sites and stuff, because Serizawa tells him there are 17 that are known at this point. And so some of the other ones that are in here is Typhon, Mokola Mabembe, was like an African name that was in there. And then a Leviathan was mentioned in that. And then Loch Ness Monster was not mentioned in that. But Loch Ness Monster was used in some marketing of the movie, even though it's not mentioned.
Yeah, I know.
The film. It's kind of one of those little jokey things they threw in, like maybe Nessie shows up, and it's
oh goodness,
throw all the monsters in.
Yeah.
I think that's really cool. But yeah, you said you have some of Bradley Whitford's lines. So
yeah, I got a ton of him.
Yeah, so I'll let you go through. But yeah, I think my favorite though is that first time that had the interaction with Godzilla, where he's using that intimidation tactic, and then they just kind of finally he lets them go without, But I love this, like those moments, and then just like open up the shield doors, and Bradley Whitford's. Sure, invite him in.
Yeah.
You let him in, invite him for a beer. Are you out of your goddamn mind? And then it was like, it's an intimidation tactic. And Thomas Middleditch, Coleman, it was just like, well, consider me intimidated. There's some great moments there. And then I love how they, even though the science doesn't quite add up to me, so a lot of the science and logic of this movie are kind of way out the window, but I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to roll with it. Well, it's like somehow with the way they're tracking him, they can check his vitals and they know like his path movements and stuff and all this, whatever. But then I love how they're like, oh, he's going to Antarctica. And then it's like this look of like, what's in Antarctica? And you get Serizawa and Graham in like, oh, because they know.
Yeah.
They
know exactly what's going on.
Yeah. They only had a little bit of data about it, but they got it. And, but that's the whole thing. You have to throw regular logic out the window when you watch these movies.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, come on. Like I said, with the helicopter scene, and they're all in there. Mark's in there with everybody. All right, they're not going to kill him right away. So they just like kick him around like a hockey puck on the ice.
Yeah.
And it's like Godzilla and Ghidorah just like attacking each other.
Ghidorah could have just stepped on the plane and it had been done, but instead he's like poking it. I'm like, oh, let me just move
licking other bodies on the floor. It's like the wackiness, and that's something we've never seen in a Godzilla movie. You never saw them interact with the humans in that way. Only maybe in Attack of the Gargantuans, and that's it. And maybe, and then. We get this with this, and it's like, wow, that's amazing. This is like such incredible that they actually go into detail with certain things like that. Yeah.
We haven't talked about Rodan a whole lot, because what Rodan technically is a giant volcanic fire pteranodon. Which is really cool. That
I loved that.
So there's a little dinosaur or anything, and then I kind of made a joke because like he kind of looks like Turkey in the face.
Oh my god,
he does like Turkey from Thanksgiving. Yeah.
And then Stanton even calls him a turkey. He's like, hey, while they're flying behind him. Like, that's funny.
Turkey.
It looks like a 6-foot turkey.
Oh no!
The fighter pilot who emergency ejects right into his mouth. I was like,
oh not a good idea.
No, bye bye.
Well, that was the coolest thing though about that they give him the volcanic charge. Within this film, in comparison to the Toho series, where literally all he was something, he had wings of death and the turbine wings and just causing havoc and destruction with his wings. With this, anything that comes into contact with him, it burns up. It gets destroyed.
Because it burned Mothra.
Exactly.
He burned Mothra.
Yeah, and the fact that he has a battle with Mothra, which is the first that I've ever seen in any of these kaiju style movies, which I think we've wanted that for a long time. And something that we never saw from Mothra, she got that little stinger, just that little toe pick to go through him, and that was it. And that was really, really cool.
Yeah, I love that. Mothra was so cool. Just the beautiful, just like that shining light. It was like almost kind of makes that like kind of, I don't know, like story with that. It is kind of like she's the like shining light of this story where like, they mentioned some of these Titans are known to be benevolent. And we see that in Mothra is that the only time she was attacking people was whenever she was in like self-defense because they're firing at her. But other than that, she just wanted to get away and like get in her chrysalis and do her thing.
Well, Mothra is always a protector of the earth. And we get that as her and who she is. She's like the mother of the earth, whereas not as being the real true protector, which they kind of lead as Godzilla as being.
Yeah.
But at the very end, we see him and he's standing on his throne, just like Conan the Barbarian, and everybody bowing to him. Yeah. So now who's going to take that throne down? Kong. At that point.
We'll see. Yeah. It's going to be interesting.
After seeing thermonuclear Godzilla, I'm kind of like, how is Kong actually supposed to stand half a thought of a chance against that? I don't know.
Yeah, I got you.
We'll see where they go with it. I am excited.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, some of the other notes I had that I really like is Ghidorah, when he's kind of setting himself up as the new alpha against the orca, and he sends out this call that transmits and kind of awakens all of the other Titans. That just sounded really cool. I loved the sound of that. It's just, and it
was like a call to arms. If you think
it just
about
echoes throughout the world. I was like, that's really cool. And of course, that's when he shows up in Boston, where Madison has had the orca hooked up because there can only be one king. He's going to challenge the orca. That's what that whole point of that was. Is he was like, who are you to talk to my minions like this? Yeah. I think it's great. I loved the return of the Hollow Earth concept from Kong Skull Island.
Yeah. Bradley Whitford actually makes it. He's swimming through like alternate tunnels underneath the earth and getting. Yeah,
they're on the ocean's floor looking for Godzilla, and then they realize when they ping him, he's still 600 miles below them, and they're like, how is this possible? And so and then Stanton gets all excited about like, oh, Hollow Earth, I knew it. Him and Brooke.
Oh, I mean, it's not flat? What the hell?
Drink and talk about.
Yes. Agreed.
Yeah. So I love that so much. And then, long live the king, man. That final battle. You guys have mentioned it so many times. I don't know if there's anything else I can say. Although I love the little tease at the very end of a Ghidorah where, the rubble sits and then you see Ghidorah's head come up and you're like, oh, no. And then it's in the mouth of Godzilla, and he just blasts it one more time.
Exactly, yeah.
Regenerating heads, and
goodness!
And then we get that end credit scene too. By the way,
that's what was my next and final thing was.
What are they going to do with that head and credits? And
And before that post-credit scene, though, we actually still got a lot of information.
Yes, we did.
Yes, we did.
We're seeing that the Titans, under the rule of Godzilla, basically, and kind of now that Ghidorah is out of the picture, that Jonah and Emma actually were pretty correct about a lot of their assertions, because you're seeing all these newspaper articles and things online and stuff where the Earth is actually kind of healing and coming back together, and a lot of it is because of these different Titans that have awakened. Scylla has something to do with like global warming and climate change issues, somehow that like affect, but like every little thing is kind of falling into place because these Titans are here, which is really interesting. And then they focus a lot on Kong, that Skull Island, like these new Titans are drawn to Skull Island, and theory being because that's kind of the closest, portal's the wrong word, but like entrance to the Hollow Earth. That's kind of where that lets out. And so as we see in Skull Island, with all the creatures, prehistoric things that are there. And
my goodness.
Titans are drawn there, which I'm sure Kong is not going to be happy about having a bunch of house guests.
Nope.
Not at all.
Who are these guys raiding my house? Come on.
He is not putting out the welcome mat for them.
And then one of the other things I thought was really cool is they mentioned that they found and discovered another giant Titan prehistoric egg that they didn't know what it was, a new Titan. And that's all it says is just an egg. And so I'm thinking, maybe if we do get a surprise extra big bad
Gigan
in Godzilla versus Kong, that's going to come into play, I think, because there has to be something else to that movie.
Yeah, if it's another alien-based one, it will be Gigan.
Nice.
If it's
I don't,
Earthbound,
I don't know what it's going to be. I'm excited to see.
It'll be interesting to see what they come up with.
Yeah.
Like I stated, the antagonist or the third antagonist within Godzilla vs. Kong is definitely man. And it's going to be a man-made kaiju. But there's going to be a fourth element involved, too.
Yeah, I think that egg's going to come into play. And then you mentioned the post-credit scene. And after all the credits, we pick up on back in Mexico where Ghidorah and Godzilla had their fight, and he ripped off that one head. Well, that head has now been fished up and found, and Alan Jonah has appeared and is now in possession of that head. What he plans to do with it, maybe we'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, for you Toho fans, you will remember with Godzilla versus Mecha King Ghidorah. Well,
Mecha King.
Yes, they have a Mecha King Ghidorah. So, yeah, there was a battle with Ghidorah, and apparently the head blew off, went into the water. People who had time travel went back to grab said head, and eventually created Mecha King Ghidorah to battle Godzilla, because Godzilla wasn't that lovely Tyrannosaur or Godzillasaurus, and they had to use that Mecha King Ghidorah to battle Godzilla. So I'm thinking that whatever they're taking out of Ghidorah for this is going to go into a Mechagodzilla. Or some sort of mech kaiju that they're going to have to battle Godzilla. Or
is that the human element that you've been alluding to?
Yeah.
Yes, yeah.
Kind of
Where
reinvention or emergence of Ghidorah because of Alan Jonah.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh goodness.
So that, and I think that's what brings Godzilla back to come back and do something, and then Kong has
Kong's pissed because all of Godzilla's new friends are crashing his house, and
and plus there was a battle with Godzilla's history with the Kongs, as it were, and
it wasn't the Kong that we know, because he's kind of the adolescent.
He's the
back in the 60s when we see Skull Island.
In the 70s.
Yeah,
so.
he's going to be a lot bigger when we see him in Godzilla versus Kong.
And he's got that axe that's made of a Godzilla bone with a fin tail on it.
Well, I'm looking forward to seeing that.
Yeah.
Before we move on to production notes and other notes that we have, the egg that you're talking about, when I looked into that, it seemed to allude to the fact that had to do with Mothra.
That would be great and awesome.
Yeah.
Because Mothra over the years
did kind of hatch
other
from
eggs.
an egg, and then
Yes.
So if saying it might be another,
might be
Are they gonna have a
Mothra.
big singing thing to bring her out?
I don't know.
Mothra.
I don't know. That's just what I was thinking with regard to the egg.
That would be good, because if you watch Godzilla versus the Thing, which is Godzilla versus Mothra, that's how it starts off. A big, huge egg that washes up on a shore, and the Japanese fishermen do that, and they put it in this big, huge enclosure, and eventually, because in that particular movie, Godzilla is the antagonist, whereas Mothra is more the protagonist, and she protects, and, the history of Godzilla is either the hero, the antagonist, or the anti-hero who is in between. There was never like straight hero, straight, threat, or, it's a mix of everything throughout its whole series run. So they kind of redefined Godzilla over the years. So I have a funny feeling in Kong versus Godzilla, or Godzilla versus Kong, that Godzilla is going to be looked as more of a threat, and Kong's going to be utilized as a way of protecting the world against Godzilla, because they see Godzilla as a threat, because he has control of some of these titans, as it were, And then they bring him out, but we will see that, human beings are just as much a threat because, they fear both at this point and are trying to utilize.
He lost his biggest cheerleader, which was Sarazawa. Sarazawa always had his back and was always defending him. Without him, that's going to be an uphill battle to get people to realize that he's not an evil presence.
Well, in commercials we do see Madison, so I'm assuming.
Yeah, so at least we have Mark and Russell, because Kyle Chandler and Millie Bobby Brown are both credited, or they're in the top billing for Godzilla vs. Kong, so we will see both of them.
Yeah,
we will.
Now we're all speculating. We should really stick to format.
Well, Pake and I always say, it's our podcast. We do what we want.
There you go.
Before we started recording, we were talking about, the top billing and looking at stuff for Godzilla vs. Kong. I haven't watched the trailer yet because I have avoided that to kind of go in as fresh as I can. But when I was looking at the top billing, I didn't realize that Denai Guerrero was going to be in it. And that's exciting.
Oh, yeah. She makes an appearance. Yep.
I'm excited.
I love Denai. She's
awesome. Just great. Yeah.
I haven't got to meet her. I've been in the same room with her and I've heard her talk.
Oh, she's amazing to talk to. She's amazing.
Yeah. So, Mark, did you have any extra notes, lore, background, anything you wanted to kind of nerd out about on Toho stuff? Or have you kind of sprinkled most of it in as we've gone?
I kind of sprinkled most of it in based upon how Toho kind of markets Godzilla. I said that, he's presented as the, if you think about it, a result of humans' turmoil within this world, and then humans created this, and they created this monster through nuclear energy. That was from World War II, because Hiroshima and everything else had happened within those years with the bombs. And then that's how Godzilla's history happened. And then over the years it changed because they wanted to make it and market it more towards children and get a lot of things like how he'd be a good guy. And he would go against these evil monsters that come his way. And I think by the third or fourth movie, they actually did that by the 60s. In the 70s, it was kind of a mismatch. It was kind of mishmashed a little bit. So you got Mechagodzilla. So Mechagodzilla shows up and reigns havoc as a disguised as a Godzilla. Now, mind you, I'm cueing the idea and thought of Godzilla versus King Kong with humans creating a mecha. Now, is this Godzilla or is this a Mechagodzilla? So it could be, what's his name from Game of Thrones that was in the movie, but he could create his own Mechagodzilla and create Jonah. And he could create his own Mechagodzilla and just try to frame it on Godzilla. And at this point, Monarch, along with the other governments, bring in Kong, because who else are they going to get really to dispatch Godzilla? Let's get Kong to come in. They have him on a raft. They knock him out with whatever gas, kind of similar to what they did in the 70s with Jeff Bridges in that particular movie, but nobody talks about that movie. And then he comes in and they do battle. And they do battle apparently on an aircraft carrier. And they get to the mainland at that point, and next thing you know, you got Mecha versus Godzilla versus Kong. And Kong's got his own plethora of weapons. I don't know how he gets them, but they are ancient and they are pretty much based upon Godzilla.
Yeah, but it's the setup for this next movie is
it's
very weird, and it's kind of like I don't know how they're going to pull.
You don't know who's good, who's
trust
evil,
them to do it,
or who's the anti-hero at that point, and that's the problem. And that's been a long thing throughout Godzilla lore. If you watch all the movies from 1954 all the way up until today, the last movie that came out was Shin Godzilla, and they kind of tried to reinvigorate the series in the movie series, that is, with where he is a force of nature that was created by man and their follies, what they're doing with the environment. which makes sense, and I recommend it highly. You will not get a dubbed version of this. It is only subtitled, and I highly recommend it because
That's good to hear.
He goes through several stages of his development within the movie and what he looks like, and the powers that he has is immense. But over the years from, like, I would say between 1954 all the way up into the early 2000s, because that's really where it ended up. And the different costume designs, or, monster costumes of Godzilla have changed as well as the character itself. He's been deemed as a savior of the planet and to protect it from anything hostile, or being a force of nature himself, or being an anti-hero where he's there to, deal with it, whatever comes his way, but man is still a hostile takeover against him. Like, oh, the enemy of my enemy is my friend kind of attitude. And that's usually how they've been billing it over the years. It's kind of like it alternates every once in a while. And it's really cool to go through and watch. And you could pick your own movies that you would love to watch because they're all incredible. The Showa, the Heisei, the Millennium, and the Reina series over the years have changed over, they all have different versions within their, I would say, between 10 and 12 year span of when they created those films. There's a Netflix series, cartoon series, which is really good. And it kind of continues on a thought from the 90s of how they have a special ops company that deals with Godzilla itself. And he has encounters with other monsters as well, and not just man. And he's kind of revealed as almost like an anti-hero at that time. And it makes sense. And the same thing within the comic books itself. So the lore of Godzilla over the years has changed. Yeah. And you could either look at him as a good guy, a bad guy, and an anti-hero. Or all three at the same time, depending on which movie you purchase. And me, I love them all because each iteration is different. The costumes are different. And you could see them in Ultraman and a whole slew of other shows that are in Japan too, because they kind of reuse a lot of the suits that they used in the 70s and the 80s for those particular films. So check those out if you can. As far as the kaiju lore within American, they're going on the route very similar in the same tropes as Toho, because 2014 was where he was something to be tackled with, but eradicated the evil at that time, which was the Mutos. Yeah. And then come this episode, or this particular movie, he was kind of in between. They had to tackle him. They saw him as like, is he friend? And, even they said it was like a animal kind of tactic when he was flashing his lights in front of them, his power. And then he just there's like a stare down, and then he just passes by them, because they weren't much of a threat. But then, he moves on, and then he goes on against Ghidorah and everything else, which the humans have created. So now humans have become the threat as well. So now we got 3 threats, which would be Godzilla, whatever monster that comes into play, and humans. Yeah. So I think come Godzilla versus Kong, there's going to be a 4-way threat, because at the very end, I wouldn't be surprised if we see Gigan. Some alien.
Just to see what else they pull into it.
Yeah, because they've only showed us only a snapshot. And mind you, I know people have seen previs before the movie last year when they did it without all the effects. And it's amazing from what they tell me. Cool. And they said, you will be entertained. You will be happy with this. You have to set aside and, let go of reality at that point, and just enjoy the film as is, because it is fantasy, and that's how you should look at it. And it's fun.
Cool. Yep. I'm looking forward to it for sure.
Yeah. We don't have long to wait.
Yeah, I know. That's like, I know, for listeners who are like, oh, when, where cranking out these MonsterVerse movies pretty fast. Well, that's the reason is because, yeah, I mean, Godzilla versus Kong comes out right here, you know, at the end of March, the end of this month. And so it's going to be like, we want to be able to get on it, you know, pretty soon after it comes out. I mean, we probably won't release an episode like the weekend or whatever it comes out. We may wait a week or two, but yeah, I think we really want to like hop on it and talk about it while it's fresh. And
definitely. You guys really want to jump in on this.
We do. And you know, originally it was supposed to be released in May. So we thought we had a little more time so we could space these out a little bit. We did not get to do that. We are moving full steam ahead.
But that's all right, because these are fun movies.
They are.
They are. Yeah.
All right. Well, I guess before we kind of wrap up the main movie conversation, Daphne always has to come in and grace us with her amazing production notes and tidbits and fun stuff.
Oh, this one, I have to warn you already. There are some in this one. Yeah.
There's a lot.
There's a lot. I had a hard time. I had to narrow some stuff down because there really were a lot of things about this movie that make it special. I think, and Pake alluded to this earlier, Michael Dougherty was all in on being involved with this film. He likened it in one interview to, quote, a childhood birthday come true. I can imagine. Let's see. Let's tell Mark he's going to guest star on the next Godzilla movie and see how he reacts. Probably the same way.
Yeah, if I was asked, I'd be like, yay, yahoo! I'll be on it.
So the cool thing for Dougherty was all of his ideas were included in the film. None of them were left out. And Pake already mentioned he immersed himself in the rewatch of all Godzilla movies. He and his writing partner, Zach Shields, held like this writer's room. It was a group of 10 to 12 people. They worked for 10 days. They shared ideas, tossed things around. And he said it was like throwing a Godzilla party that has been raging ever since. And I thought that was kind of funny.
Yeah, that's so cute.
He really pushed the crew to bring Godzilla's roar even closer to the original 1954 roar. And he instructed the design team to focus on an Eastern dragon appearance and did not want them to look like the dragons from Game of Thrones. Mm-hmm. Which I thought was cool.
I respect that completely with not going to the same thing like of Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
Plus the fact that he respected the 1954 roar. And if you listeners don't know of how they created that original 1954 roar that we all know, they have an upright double bass and they tuned it down as they were using the bow on it. And they slowed it down during the recording to give that noise. And that's how we get that. So they, over the years, they have their own ways, because over the years between, I'm going to say the Heisei, the Showa, and the Rhea series, and even the Millennium, they wound up doing a variety of different things to change the roar in a bit. They actually tried to stay away from the Godzilla 1998 version, which, even though it was very distinct and you could tell it was Godzilla, but they do create that. And I love how they were able to create this particular roar, too, for Godzilla, and as well as Ghidorah and Mothra and Rodan and all the different monsters within this particular movie. They really went in depth. If you get the Blu-ray, they go even further into how they got the sounds of each, which is pretty cool.
I feel like we could do a whole podcast on just the sounds of some of our favorite monsters and where they came from. That might be an idea for a future episode. We might have to do a special edition.
Nobody wants to go into my phone. I have a lot of roars from monsters in the Toho series for ringtones or messages. So be aware if you're around me and you hear a Godzilla roar or Titanosaurus or whoever, you'll hear that somewhere.
It's just Mark's phone. They're not coming out from behind the bushes. It's Mark's phone. Don't be too scared. So the visual effects for this film were provided by moving picture company DNEG, Method Studios, Renault VFX, Rodeo FX, and All In VFX. Guillaume Richeron was the main visual effects supervisor. Movie score was by the fabulous Bear McCreary, who has done amazing work for The Walking Dead, Outlander, and Snowpiercer. He actually won a BAFTA for his work on the video game God of War. But that was a cool tidbit. Did not know that. Godzilla, King of the Monsters was also the first time Blue Oyster Cult song Godzilla was used in a Godzilla film. And then to wrap it all up, here are just a few notes about monsters because I love them so much. So by the time Dougherty joined the film, Legendary had already secured the rights to Mothra, Rodan, and King Ghidorah. But usage of Toho's monsters each comes with a price tag. And although he planned to use more of some of the classic monsters, the budget did not allow for it. The skeleton that was outside Godzilla's underwater temple resembles Anguirus.
Anguirus or Anguirus or Angeles.
Okay.
There are several different ways of saying the name.
Well, he was listed online as an ally of Godzilla at one point, and the filmmakers confirmed that it was indeed Anguirus, whose skeleton that we see outside the underwater temple. And the eye spots on Mothra's wings were designed to look like Godzilla's eyes to show a connection between the two monsters. Mothra's screech in the film is a modified version of her original sound from the Toho series. King Ghidorah's head was a mix of motion capture and CGI, with one person responsible for each of the three heads, and two others played the body. The names given to Ghidorah's head during production were Ish, Ni, San, which are the Japanese words for 1, 2, 3. San's nickname is Kevin, which likely refers to how San is easily distracted, and Dougherty likened them to conjoined siblings. Although uncredited in 2014, TJ Storm is credited with reprising his role of Godzilla in this film. And despite there now being 35 Godzilla films since 1954, this film marks the first time that the adult Mothra and Rodan have fought. And I believe Mark brought that up earlier.
Yes. Yeah, and 35 movies. Now, does James Bond beat that record?
I don't know. I think there might be more. Godzilla franchise movies.
Yeah, there was like a long thing back in the 90s. Who had the longest record of movies? And it was on the MTV Movie Awards. And it was between Godzilla and Jason. And Godzilla beat him. And he got the Lifetime Achievement Award, by the way, too, on MTV Movie Awards.
Jason's only had 12, I think, total.
14, I think.
Yeah.
All.
Yeah.
But the funny thing is that they did give a Lifetime Achievement Award to Godzilla as well.
Wow. Was he present to accept the award, or did?
Oh yeah. There was somebody in a Godzilla suit. It was funny. Well, you have to actually remember he also did Godzilla versus Bambi.
What?
Yeah, there is a movie. You look it up on YouTube, listeners. Godzilla versus Bambi.
Oh no, I don't think I want to see this.
And there's a sequel too. So check it out.
I don't think I want to see this, Pake.
I don't know.
Oh no.
All right. Well, it's time to get to some quotes. And I know, Mark, you said you had a bunch of fun ones. So I'll let you go first. Just run through what you got.
All right. Well, this is Dr. Ishiro Sarasawa saying, sometimes the only way to heal our wounds is to make peace with the demons who created them. And Mark Russell replies, you really believe that? And Dr. Ishiro Sarasawa says, don't you? Isn't that why you are here?
That's good.
Oh, yeah. That's a good one. I almost included that on my list.
And here's another one from Sarasawa. So he says, there are some things beyond our understanding, Mark. We must accept them and learn from them because these moments of crisis are also potential moments of faith. A time when we either come together or fall apart. Nature always has a way of balancing itself. The only question is, what part will we play? And Mark says, did you just make that up? And Serizawa says, no, I read it in a fortune cookie once, a really long fortune cookie.
Great.
I like that.
All right. Well, I only have just a few. So, yeah. Do you want me to go or you want to go first,
Well,
Daphne?
You know what? Why don't you go first, Pake? Because I think I have one that should probably be the end of our quotes.
All right. I know there's one that you have that I also have. So I'll leave that one to you. Well, actually,
Okay.
no, you have two of them. And now that I know which one I think you're talking about, I think I'll leave that one to you. And I'll do the
Thank
other one.
you. It's perfect, I think, to end on.
Yeah. So I have a couple lines from Barnes, who is played by O'Shea Jackson. He has some good moments. He says about Mark Russell. He says, dude hates Titans. And Coleman turns to him and says, you would too if you were him. Which I think was kind of just like, it's like you knew what he's been through.
Yeah.
That's great. And then while they're driving, he Mark and Emma are just arguing and trying to figure out what's going on. And he says in the back, I can't blame that kid. If I had these two for parents, I'd run away from home too. Which then they stop it. What did you say? And he's just very, very loud. So if I had you two for parents, I would run away from home too. He's doubling down on it.
I feel like it was the inspiration. It was pivotal.
Yeah.
It was a pivotal important statement. Yeah.
And then I have a couple others that kind of like I sprinkled into my other notes too. But so I mentioned Serizawa's goodbye, old friend in Japanese, which was beautiful. But then Serizawa, right before that moment when he sacrifices himself, he has a great thing that he says to Mark about Godzilla. So, are you sure you want to do this kind of question? He says, he fought for us, died for us. He's not only proof that coexistence is possible, he is the key to it. Which I thought was really
that. Oh, R.I.P. Serizawa.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he was a good man.
And then, I think that is all that I had on quotes, other than one that I'm going to let Daphne take.
All right. So I'm going to close it out with this one quote that I think sums up the whole movie. It was by Emma. It was at the end of her life. Her last words before dying were, as she looked up at Ghidorah, long live the king. And I felt like that summed up the movie completely and was a great way to kind of segue her character out. It was kind of like the fuck you moment that characters like to get before they're taken down.
Their last words.
Her last words, I think, were great. Long live the king.
Yeah, I have that quote in mind, but attributed to two different times.
Yeah, same here. Alana Jonas says it too.
But then Alan Jonas also says it.
Alan Jonas.
And they when they realize that Ghidorah has made their job a lot easier because they don't have to be waking them up anymore because his call has done it for them. And so as he sees all the monsters kind of like worshiping and like being part of, Ghidorah's minions, and that's what he says about Ghidorah. He says, long live the king.
Yeah.
And so it's cool to then have Emma at the end turn it on Ghidorah and be like, no, it's still Godzilla's turn.
It's still Godzilla. Yeah, a highly radioactive Godzilla.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right, so that means we get to rank the movie a little bit here. So where
you have to go first. I don't have to go first.
Why not?
Oh, because we have a guest, and our guest always gets to go first.
Oh, I get to go first? Oh, no.
You do, on a scale of 1 to 10, Mark.
On a scale from 1 to 10 on a Godzilla note?
Yes.
I will
whatever note you want to put it on.
A 9.2 out of all Godzilla films. Now, this is one of 5 in my top 5 of overall Godzilla films. So that includes the original Heisei, Showa, Rhea, and Millennial series too. So that shows a lot. Legendary does have a part within that era, or that rating too, because honestly, finally, we get a Godzilla that is an American Godzilla that works well and Toho is proud to actually be a part of. And I can't wait for the next movie to come out for the legendary Monsterverse.
Yes. Nice.
Definitely.
All right. Daphne, now you do get to go before.
All right, I can handle it. Okay, so
I don't know, since, first time jumping into this movie, I got to see where it lands on it with you.
Okay, so I loved so much of this movie. The effects, which we didn't talk so much about the effects, but I love the effects. I love the monsters. I love the detail on the monsters. I love the little teeny details that they put into it, like each monster's outpost. And I loved the characters, although I know that I know this film may not be everyone's cup of tea. However, as someone who loves monsters and a good story with a lot of destruction, which we have already determined I do, at the end of the day, I give it an 8.6.
Nice.
Good. Cool.
All right. I close to you on that. I think I'm actually putting it up a little bit than what I did have it, because
that happens when we have these discussions.
A lot of great stuff, but I had to have it below Skull Island, even though this had way more world building and like nods to it, but just Skull Island on its own standalone thing was just something very special.
It was
not
very
to say
special.
that this wasn't.
It was a special movie. Between the music, the ambiance, the way it was done back then, for how it was filmed, for the era that it was being filmed about.
Yeah.
It worked out for that film. Yeah, I agree.
But I did like this one a lot better than 2014's.
Absolutely.
Definitely. It's just building up so much. So I kind of find like a medium ground, I think, on like those two. So I landed on an 8.3 myself. So.
Ooh, all right. That works.
Yeah. Like it for that reason.
Yeah.
Pretty good. But yeah, awesome. That is Godzilla, King of the Monsters. Mark, thank you so much. We don't know yet for sure, but hopefully you'll be able to stick around to do feedback and stuff with us at some point, because
we'll see.
We do these a little later, but yeah.
Yeah, I know.
So it'll be cool.
Yeah, it'd be cool.
Speaking of that is the feedback phone. It is ringing.
Oh, you better answer it. You better answer it, Pake.
Right. Feedback phone. What do they got to say? This first bit of feedback comes from Tony on Twitter, and she says, "The Godzilla movies weren't my favorite. Godzilla and the other monsters were all very cool, but the story is so dense. Kong Skull Island is 100 times better. Still, these bring me back to my childhood, and I feel a certain amount of love for them no matter what. Looking forward to Godzilla vs. Kong. I'm a little confused because I thought both were the quote-unquote good guys."
Us too, Tony.
Yeah. I'm very intrigued to see how that comes out very soon.
Yes.
It's so close.
I know.
I'm so ready.
The advertisements, I swear every single day I see another one. And I'm just getting more excited and really just can't wait to watch it.
Yes. But Tony, I love one thing from your feedback that really explains the difference in the movies that I haven't really been able to put into words before. And that's because I wonder, what is the difference between the Kong movie and the Godzilla ones, other than the Godzilla ones are more current timeline? But that wasn't the only thing it was, because Kong Skull Island was very cut and dry. Here's the story. They come here, they see this happens, they go. Versus the Godzilla ones that are full of a lot more lore and quote science-y stuff, even though it but movie science, but yeah, it is a lot more dense. I'm glad that you put it that way, because that makes a lot more sense. There's a lot more deeper story elements to it.
Agreed.
That are harder to follow, or more, not really harder, but there's a lot more to follow, versus Kong Skull Island was very simplistic, and not in a bad way, but yeah. So I'm glad that you pointed that out, because that kind of puts into words a big difference of the movie styles.
Absolutely. I think too, with Godzilla, I feel like because there's so much lore, they try to be faithful to creating a movie that sticks with that, or is as close to those specific pieces of lore. And I think, honestly, I agree. I think Kong Skull Island is the better movie.
Yeah, I love all of them for what they are. They're great, but Yeah, if I had to pick a favorite out of like this like MonsterVerse so far, then yeah, Kong Skull Island is just miles away. Just so much fun. And not that like this one, King of the Monsters is a lot of fun.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, there's like something very special about Skull Island.
Yeah. It's still holding up as we're going through these episodes in our quote season 2. Kong Skull Island. Still holding up.
Oh, yeah. All right. We have one little bit of voicemail feedback, audio feedback from our good friend Steve Brown. He's always coming through with the voicemails.
Hey, Pake and Daphne, and maybe Mark. I'm not sure if he's on for the feedback or not, but just started Godzilla King of the Monsters and was a little confused at first with the whole flashback thing because I don't know why I thought it was Godzilla, but here we are 5 years later. So wow, I haven't watched this movie in a while, so I'm excited. That guy just mentioned Kong. Oh, well, I guess he is Monarch, so he would know about Kong. Which one's in Wyoming? 11 just said Monster Zero. So they're waking this thing up on purpose? I don't remember the reasoning. The guy just said, get to the chopper. I don't get it. If she can control these monsters with the orca, why doesn't she just make them be friends? Let me get this straight. After that whole big speech, the last thing Emma says is, well, I suppose you guys go to the bunkers and hide out. So you want Monarch to choose who's going to survive. Great. Good plan. Food, a fight, or something more intimate. And Godzilla to the rescue. The movie's only half over, so there's no way that this oxygen depleter destroyer thing worked, right? That thing just grew back a head. Ghidorah, gonorrhea, Ghidorah. Okay, I know I took a break in the middle of this movie, but I totally missed how did 11, whatever her name, Maddie, get from where they were on the island to whatever island they were on with her mom and the bad guys to Boston with the orca. Whoa. Hey, big guy. It's great that you're back and you're back to life, but don't waste your energy shooting it up into the sky. You got to go see gonorrhea. It just occurred to me that Millie Bobby Brown has really not had many, lines in this movie. She's got a lot of breathing, though. All right, I'm over 2 minutes, so I'm going to finish the movie, but I'm going to send this right now. Talk to you later.
Oh, that's amazing. That might be the highlight of that right there. She hasn't had a lot of lines, but she's had a lot of breathing. That's great.
Thank you, Steve, so much for your feedback. Yes. It's appreciated so much every week.
It's always fun, especially when you it's like live tweeting, but without the tweet. It's just live voicemailing as you go through the movie, and it's always a blast. I love it.
He's kind of, I think, developed his own way of providing feedback now. And it's evolved from the original version, and it's morphed into something else.
Yes, we get to take a journey with him through the movie.
Yes.
It's always great.
It is.
Thank you so much, Steve, for calling in. For real, we always appreciate it. You're the best. You're awesome.
Yes.
All right. Well, if anybody wants to try to compete with Steve on being a great feedback, I'm kidding. You can't compete. No, but for real, if anybody wants to leave us any kind of feedback, whether it's on Twitter or a voicemail like that, or just, leave us a message on Facebook or anything like that. But there's a lot of ways to do that, and I'll list them out for you. You can go to our Facebook page, facebook.com/runforyourlivespodcast. Email us, send us voicemails at runforyourlivespodcast@gmail.com. Twitter is RFYL Podcast, and even Instagram, Run For Your Lives Podcast. We are on Instagram. Send us messages and comments there. We will read those as well. And if you're enjoying the show, make sure to share the love. Tell your friends. You can send anybody and everybody to runforyourlivespodcast.com. You can find links to all of our social media pages, podcast players. We're on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, Audible, Pandora, YouTube, everywhere. Every week. And if you're on Apple Podcasts, make sure to give us 5 stars, leave us a rate and review. It makes us very happy.
Yes, it does.
Give us some love over there.
Yes. And it helps other people discover us.
Yes. And then I'll give a couple of shout outs to what's going on in the podcast universe around us. If you're a huge Marvel fan, like I am, then, go to TV podcast industries with our good friend Derek, who was on here recently for our St. Patrick's Day episode. Him and his partners over there at Podcast Industries, they broke down Assembled, the making of WandaVision from Disney Plus, and now they are going through The Falcon and the Winter Soldier, which is out now. Episode 2, I'm actually watching as soon as we're done recording this, so I'm excited for that. And then also Panels to Pixels with Steve and Mark. They are covering The Falcon and the Winter Soldier over there as well. And then I guess Mark and Steve. So Steve is jumping back over on there to do that. And then Steve and Daphne over on Panels to Pixels are still going through Snowpiercer Season 2. The finale is coming up. So.
Yes, they've made us wait 2 weeks. Steve and I have kind of complained about that. Didn't want to have to wait. So we'll have a 2-hour season finale on Monday. So we'll be breaking that down, getting that up. It's going to be interesting. Lots of things happening on that show. I love it.
Yes.
It's been great being able to talk about it with Steve.
It's awesome. And Mark and Steve also want to hear a little bit more of them because Mark's other podcast, Adrenaline Cinema, talks all things classic and fun action movies. Him and Steve are getting together over there to talk about Highlander.
Yes. It's a great film from the 80s. Yeah, there can be only one, and that's all I'm going to say.
Yes. And then, of course, again, you can check out our friends Jason and Lucy on the Walking Dead cast over at Podcastica. Still going through the Walking Dead season 10C, I guess is what it is now. These 6 extra episodes. Only got a few of those left, and those have been really fun for it's cool to see, they don't really push the story forward that much. It's kind of a little, self-set group of episodes that they filmed during the COVID pandemic. And so it's very, limited amount of actors in the episode. And it's all you can tell it's filmed with a lot of COVID safety precautions and stuff. But it's cool that they wanted to put something out since we lost an entire year of The Walking Dead thanks to COVID. So they want to do a little bit of something. So these 6 episodes have been cool. Walking Dead cast is covering those. And then next week here on Run for Your Lives, we have something super awesome and fun we've been wanting to do for a while. Daphne, why don't you tell them what that is?
I am so excited to talk about this. As you know, Pake and I are huge fans of the zombie film genre, or zombies in general. So next week, we decided to dip our toes in the water or board the train to Busan.
Mm-hmm.
So we will be covering Train to Busan, which was a fantastic zombie film that took place on a train. And to me, it revolutionized zombies a bit. It basically took what 28 Days Later did in the 2000s and brought it even further.
Yeah.
And it's a very exciting film, and I can't wait to break that down.
Yeah.
We're definitely going to have a nerd out.
All right.
We want to thank our special guest, Mark, for being on the podcast with us to talk all things Godzilla. He is the head of the Pirate Core Entertainment Network, which is our podcast network. So we're very happy to have him on here to talk about Godzilla, especially because he's such a big fan and really knows the lore and the behind-the-scenes information. So we hope that you guys have enjoyed listening to what Mark had to say about Godzilla, King of the Monsters.
Yeah.
And with that, we have reached the end of another fun episode.
Yeah.
Thanks, everyone, for listening. I'm Daphne.
And I'm Pake.
And if you have to run from a pissed-off winged extraterrestrial kaiju dragon with 3 heads, you better run for your lives.
Bye-bye.